One of the thinkers that has had a lot of influence on me is Sylvia Wynter, specifically her concept of creating a new way of thinking, a new discipline that is able to rethink the concept of the human and is able to rethink the concept of thinking in itself outside of the West. And that's what I actually wanted to get through. So art and technology become the point of entry, as it were, to reconfigure the Western way of thinking and the Western dominance over thinking. Before coming to Colombia, I did, my initial studies were in traditional sculpture in Cuba. It's called San Alejandro, which is a fine art academy. And in there, my thesis was on specifically on the Yoruba concept of art and how it differs from traditional Western concepts of art. I'm looking for anything that has to do with the concept of interface and how this new technology are bringing the concept of the interface beyond the flat screen to the three-dimensional space. There's two reasons why I target the technology of the VR headset. One is the idea of a big company like Meta imposing a narrative around a technology, which was the metaverse first, and how that affects our conception of reality. And my concept is that the conversion of this technology turns reality into a prototype. In a very pedestrian way of thinking about it is they launching products before they're even done, and you're trying to update to those products before they're even in the market ahead of time. There's a new paradigm in which we're relating to the world no longer through a device, but the technology itself becomes the mediation, the lenses. And in that context, then the headset is enacting the concept of that I've been working for this piece, which is the interfacing of actuality, how the actual becomes an interface, how the real world becomes the interface itself. On top of that, you have artificial intelligence, specifically machine perception and machine vision, and that interprets what you're looking at, thinking ahead towards the thesis and the coming year. I'm excited about two specific projects that sort of come together. One is rethinking how we co-create and we collaborate, how things come to be. In more general, how can we develop sort of like a platform of a new technology that allows us to do that beyond what is today's social networks, to deploy them in real time in society, so in the social and civic space, where it could have the actual impact that that work could have, and how we have a say on how these technologies get used and deployed. And three, how do we rethink how art gets funded and the resources that you need as an artist to deploy this in relation to the public spaces where you're gonna deploy them. In the context, thinking outside of the continental, let's say European or Western thinking, there's a long tradition, specifically in the Caribbean, specifically in Cuba, what today is known as within the context of decolonial theory. But specifically in Cuba, there's a huge influence from West Africa, specifically Yoruba tradition, what is today Nigeria. And within that, there is different philosophical resources that sit outside the Western canon and the Western tradition, thinking about what reality is and how everything relates at every single level and how it's organized. Art has a privileged space and at the same time a restricted space, both at the same time. It's restricted and privileged. It's restricted because what we understand as art is already prescribed. It's a very 18th century conception. It's a very Western idea of what art is, and what is ontologically is able to do is very limited. But at the same time, of all the ways of thinking in the West, and just generalizing it, put it very general between, let's say, philosophy, science, and art. Art is still, today, within the institutional and the societal function, still the one that has the biggest space to experiment.